Introducing Jana and Brogan. Not one of us is making it out of here alive, no matter how hard we ignore, avoid, and pretend. Death is inevitable. The one thing we all have in common. It's time to get comfortable with reality and open up some dialogue about how this looks, how it could look, and how we want it to look. Let's begin the dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, Jana Brogan.
Thank you, Hudson. Hello, North Bay. I think I see some faces I recognize out there. So my name is Jana, and I'm here to speak to you tonight as a death doula or an end-of-life consultant. And I'm here to begin a very specific dialogue with this community. And it starts a little bit like this. We're all going to die. Change it up a bit. Yeah, it's a really uncomfortable topic, and most of us are a little squeamish when it comes to considering death and mortality, particularly our own. How do you guys feel about that? Like, if you sit with it for a moment and just settle in and have to admit to yourselves that this life we have is finite. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah? It's a little bit scary? It scares me, I have to be honest, when I think about my own, death and the death of the people I love, or even just the world that I know and how it changes and dies and is reborn every day. It wasn't always like this. We have forgotten how to die. It wasn't so very long ago, 100 years ago, 80 years ago, people lived with death every day. We lived in farms and we lived in farming communities, and there weren't hospitals at our disposal. People were born in their homes, and they lived in their homes, and they died in their homes, and there were wakes in their homes, and then funerals, and then people walked behind the horse and carriage to the graveyard and buried their dead. And throughout it all, they were supported by their community. They were held in the arms of the community. People knew how to hold vigil, and they fed the families, and they gathered around, and they held space with the families as people were dying. We've forgotten how to do that. A year and a half ago, I was sort of forced into the dysfunction of death when I experienced the death of someone really important to me. And to be honest, I didn't react at all the way I thought I was going to. And I was forced to deal with a lot of guilt, and I was forced to face a lot of truths about myself. And it was a very sorrowful time, and it was a really chaotic time, and it wasn't at all smooth, and it was very unpredictable. And I was left thinking, holy smokes, we don't do this very well. We do not die well at all. And a lot of that is because we refuse to have any kind of dialogue about death. We just kind of tiptoe through life and pretend it's not going to happen, and put on face cream and do everything we're supposed to do, and shy away from anything that is unpleasant. So after my experience with the dysfunction of death, I decided, there has to be a better way to do this. And so I set about trying to find a better way. And I enrolled in a course of study at the Institute of Traditional Medicine in Toronto, and began to undertake study that's called Contemplative End-of-Life Care. So essentially I was training to be a death doula, someone who would come back into this community and begin the dialogue of death, and work with people in the community about death and about different topics that pertain to death. And there's so many of them, and I could stand up here for days probably and get excited and try and excite the community about all these different aspects. But what I'm doing right now is just beginning the dialogue, and I'm here to pose some difficult questions within this community, and I'm here to make us think about some things that might be difficult. I'm here to talk about things like medical assistance in death, and I'm here to talk about hospice and home death, and I'm here to talk about green funerals and green burial, and I'm here to talk about how we treat our most vulnerable members of society when it comes to death. How do we deal with people who are homeless, and people with addictions, and people who are impoverished, and what happens when it's their time to die? And are we as a community going to be there to support them and to facilitate their experience? Or is a good death experience only going to be available to those who can afford a good death experience, or to those who have already a strong community of support? And you can tell a lot about a community by the way it decides to engage in these conversations and the answers that we arrive at together. So I could go on and on and on, I would love to, but I'm not going to. But I am here to say, as a member of this community who cares about this community, that it's really time that we begin to engage in meaningful dialogue about death, because it's going to happen to each and every one of us. So I'm here to bring the conversation of death out of the hospitals and out of the boardrooms and out of the hands of people who make the laws and bend the rules and determine how things are going to look. And I'm bringing the conversation back into the community where it belongs and into the voices and arms of those of us who live here. Thank you very much.